www.brave.org, a tune-in radio station, part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The Innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The Fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The Kick-Ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The Sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the host and guest and are not necessarily supported by WPSC 88.7 FM, station management, or the station owner, William Patterson University. Anyone wanting to offer differing opinions may do so by calling the show at 973-720-2738. Abusive callers will be rejected. Now here's your program on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Well, good morning. Good morning to you. And believe it or not, time is quickly passing by because it is Saturday once again, and we are together. It seemed like we were just here last Saturday, and I say this just about every week when we open up. I'm only up here one day a week, but it feels like I'm up here all 7 because it seems like I was just sitting behind the microphone, and now we're back together again. And if you can hear my voice, it is the Reading Circle with Marc Medley, and 6 days have gone by, or 7 days have gone by, and we're back together again. So my guest is already on the line. I'm always thrilled about that because since it's a very early morning talk show and the guests usually call in on the telephone, I'm always kind of sitting there on pins and needle until the phone lights up. And I have the opportunity to talk to my guest a couple of minutes prior to us going on the air. And then after that, everything I know is good to go. But as we always start the show off, I'm going to give you the weather. I'm going to read from 2 books and then introduce my guest, share some information with you, and our interview will be underway. So we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to go right on and get into it. So weather-wise, here in the Wayne, New Jersey area, right now it's 47.2 degrees, and it says that's what it feels like. Rain likely, high 48, low of 40. Got a 90% chance of rain. It was actually raining as I was driving into the studio this morning. The older I've gotten, the more I really like rain. I like the sound of it, the smell of it. As long as we're not talking flooding and like anything disastrous, I really have gotten to like the rain. So tonight, Saturday night, cloudy skies. This evening, it's going to become partly cloudy after midnight. 20% chance of rain tonight. Then tomorrow, Sunday, mostly sunny skies, becoming windy during the afternoon. 0% chance of rain tomorrow. 62 as a high, 48 as a low. Partly cloudy tomorrow night. And then on Monday, some clouds in the morning will give way to mainly sunny skies for the afternoon. High of 59, low of 39. Monday night is going to be mostly clear. On Tuesday, sunshine and clouds mixed. High of 52, low of 34. Mostly clear sky on Tuesday night. And then rounding out the forecast, a big ball of yellow sun. 51 as a high, 31 as a low, a few clouds on Wednesday night. Well, that is the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. I told you I'll read from 2 books. It is the Reading Circle, so we kick off the show of what the show is about, which is reading. And I read from the book, The Power of Being Thankful. 365 Devotions for the Power of Gratitude, written by Joyce Meyer, as well as Until Today by Iyanla Vanzant. So, let us get right on into the Joyce Meyer book right now. For October the 22nd, Joyce says, "Are you disappointed with God? For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Isaiah 55:9. Perhaps you feel that God has let you down at some time in your life, or that one of his promises did not come true for you. If so, I urge you to realize that God doesn't always work within our time frame or in the ways that we would choose. But if you continue to trust Him, you will see the goodness of God in your life. If you'll trust God each day, be thankful for the things He has done for you in the past, and decide to never give up, you will see Him doing amazing things in your life. God's faithfulness surrounds Him. It is part of His character, and we can count on Him to be with us and do all that He has promised to do. Don't let past disappointments hold you back. Dare to trust God again today. The prayer of thanks. Father, help me to set aside my pain or disappointment and learn to trust you again. I realize that even when I don't understand your plan is still best. Thank you for your faithfulness and your love for me. That's from the book, The Power of Being Thankful, 365 Devotions for Discovering the Strength of Gratitude. The author of that is Joyce Meyer. From Iyanla Vanzant's book, Until Today, for October the 22nd, she says, I will realize my own worth when I accept I cannot fight my way to the top. When you have an intact, healthy sense of worth, you value other people. You realize that people are different. You understand that people see things and interpret things in different ways. You do not compare yourself to them, nor do you feel the need to compete with them. You know who you are, which means you can accept others as they are. When you do not have a healthy or intact sense of worth, you feel the need to win every argument. You feel the need to always prove your point. You are threatened by differences. You need agreement with your views, values, and opinions in order to feel supported and acknowledged. When you are not sure that who you are is good enough, you will do your darndest to prove that you are better than someone else. Since you do not have enough of your own worth to draw upon, you will set out to destroy the worth of those who you believe are opposing you. Should you ever find yourself on the attack, realize that you are experiencing a sense of less than or not as good as. When you find yourself tearing someone else down in order to prove your point, realize that you have lost your grounding. You are not centered in yourself. Disagreement is not the same as an attack. When you call someone out, when you criticize their physical being, their talents, gifts, or efforts, believing that their inability to agree with you somehow makes you wrong, realize that you have lost it. You have lost your sense of worth. Until today, you may not have realized that you attack, criticize, or tear people down when they do not agree with you. Just for today, draw on the strength of who you are. Stand in the strength of what you know. Should you be faced with a different point of view, allow yourself and others to simply be different. Today I am devoted to embracing the understanding that my differences do not make me wrong. And that's from the book Until Today by Iyanla Vanzant. I might copy this page and send it over to my good friend Donald Trump. I think he could take a good dose of that particular page, and we're talking about attacking physical characteristics, or going on the attack as opposed to staying with the issues. But nonetheless, we've opened up the show now, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce my guest, who is waiting in the wings, as they say in the media. And that is none other than D.V. Nelson. D.V. Nelson is a Christian father, peace officer, veteran, friend, and mentor. He always has a smile on his face and always looks at the bright side of every situation, even when things look gloomy. He enjoys spending time with his children, enjoys the company of friends, and volunteers to mentor other children through sports. If you meet D.V. Nelson on the street, work, restaurant, or any other place you can think of, you can guarantee you will make a new friend and walk away with a smile on your face. Welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, D.V. Nelson. D.V., good morning.
Good morning, sir. How you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
It's about 5:10 over here where I'm at, but yeah, I'm doing great.
Now, where are you calling out of?
I'm calling out of San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, get out. San Antonio. I know the city well. I did my basic training for the Air Force there.
Yes, you do know well.
I know San Antonio very well. Well, first of all, I had at one point in time a friend of mine who was in the Air Force. They were stationed there for a while because he was a TI. He was a drill sergeant. That was one of his assignments. I went to visit them while they were there, and then ultimately I wound up being assigned there for basic training whenever I joined the Air Force myself. And so I had the opportunity to go to Alamo and the Riverwalk and go see a few Spur games. And I'm trying to think of some of the other sites. The San Antonio Zoo. I've had an opportunity. Yeah, like I said, I've gotten to know San Antonio pretty well. It's been some time since I've been there. So,
well, sir, first, thank you for your service. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
thank you. You need to come back. It's grown.
I'm sure. Thank you as well, because it's been, let's see now, it's been since the 80s since I've been, it would have been since like 88, 89, somewhere in there is the last time I believe I was in San Antonio. So I'm sure it has changed tremendously. And so you're down in the Lone Star State. I mean, it's like I have an aunt that lives in Houston. I've been, actually, let me see, I've been to Houston, I've been to Dallas, I've been to San Antonio. So I've been to the major cities in Texas, because I used to travel down there on business at one point to Dallas. And then, like I said, Houston, my aunt lives there, and in San Antonio, I did the military there. So I thank you for your service as well. As a matter of fact,
thank you.
So, all right, now I'm gonna share some information with the listening audience. Listening audience, you know what to do. Get on all your social media sites and let somebody know that D.V. Nelson is on the line with me, calling all the way from the Lone Star State, the state where everything is big. And he is going to be talking about his book, 35 Pounds. So get on all your social media sites. I know we had a little trouble with the internet yesterday, but I believe everything is up and going again. Get on your Twitter, your Facebook, your Pinterest, your Instagram, Facebook, all of them. Get on there and wake somebody up. Tell them D.V. Nelson is on the line with me. We're going to be talking about his book, 35 Pounds.
In 50 feet, turn left. Why are you driving so slowly?
After a few drinks, I'm taking it slow.
Well, you're not fooling the cop behind you.
What?
Get ready to pay in 0.1 miles.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The cow says,
I love you.
To a child, it's just something else to play with. Lock it up, because 1.7 million children in the U.S. are living with unlocked and loaded guns. Get involved at ceasefireusa.org.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Yes, if you can hear the sound of me and DV's voice, you are listening to The Reading Circle, and you're either tuned in northern New Jersey on WP 88.7 FM or somewhere around the world on gobrave.org as we web stream around the world. So even though it is early where I am and even earlier where DV is, in some parts of the world, they're actually ahead of us. So over in Europe, it might be around noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon there in France and places like that. And some other places, they might be way behind us. There might be still night there. So in any event, if you can hear us, you're listening in one of those two areas. As you know, the show is The Reading Circle, and we talk about books. And I do have an author on here, and the book is titled 35 Pounds. Now, DV, I generally don't have written questions or anything like that, but I do kind of start off. I start off the interview kind of getting a feel for where did the writing begin. And so I generally ask my guests, is that something you always did? Did you do that as a child? Did you do that in grammar school or in high school? Or where did this whole notion of becoming a writer, where did that start?
Well, I became a writer when, after I had custody of my kids, I was in a marriage and I got divorced. And I was sitting here in my house, and I didn't want to go to the bars and drink, and I was talking to God, praying to God. And I've never really took writing serious. And I write reports and stuff like that. So, anyways, I was sitting at home, and I said, you know what? I think I'm just going to. And the 35-pound book is a case of mine. And all the other troopers that I worked with were, hey, you need to write a book about this. You need to write a book. You need to write a book. So as I was home, and I didn't want to be the typical depression, and woe was me and stuff like that, or what could I have done or anything. So I had my kids with me, and I'm raising my kids, and I had to be strong for them. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to write and express my feelings that way. So I started writing, and next thing I know, it was very therapeutic for me. And as I wrote, I cried, and a lot of emotion came into it, and I talked about my relationship with God, and it just flowed. And when I was done, I wrote my first book. And that's how I got into writing.
So that's how it starts. Many of my guests, a lot of them had been writing since they were in high school, but I have had guests just like you that didn't write till they were an adult. And it just happened to be situational or circumstances come up where, like you just described, where they put the pen to paper. Now, for those of you in the listening audience, DV, are you still a state trooper or were a state trooper?
I am a state trooper.
You're still one. Okay, so when you hear him talking about on a case, that's what he's talking about.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Because that part of actually the description of the book I didn't read yet, and so whenever you refer to that, I just want the listening audience to know that. So, and you heard DV thank me for my service. I thank him for his, because in the line of work that he is in, it's almost like. In today's environment, it is really crazy. It's like a no-win situation for those who are in law enforcement. Because on the one hand, we got to have law enforcement. And then every time they come and do what they're supposed to do, then they turn around and get criticized. So it's a really crazy environment. And I'm not one, DV, I can tell you that now. And it's not just because I'm speaking to you. I'm not always one to jump on that police brutality bandwagon so quick. I'm really not. And people, they kind of look at me because I'm African American. They look at me like I have three heads. But my thing is always like, well, had little whoever not stolen that car, they would not have been in that predicament to begin with. No one ever takes the tape back to the beginning of the crime or the offense that was done to begin with. It's like, well, had they not robbed that store, had they not, it gets really frustrating for me as a civilian. So I can't imagine what it's like for you in law enforcement, that whenever you all do it, and don't get me wrong, there are some bad police officers just like there's bad every other profession.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so all right, but you can't paint this broad brush that every police officer or every trooper is like that. It's just like I'm in education. You can't paint this broad brush that every teacher sucks, because it's not true.
Yes, sir.
So I take my hat off to you, those in law enforcement. I have wonderful friends who are in law enforcement. I've served in military myself. I know what it's like, but it's just a frustrating time that when you're doing your job, and if you don't do it, then you would catch it the other way. Well, the police never come. Trooper never got here. No. And then when you do it, and if it comes down to something that happens, whatever happens along the time of the case, then you get criticized the other way. So I say all that to say, listening audience, DV is in law enforcement. So that's even more interesting, the fact that he took the time to put a book together. And the book is titled, it's a very simple title, Big Number 35. 35 pounds. So, okay, where did the concept for the book come from, DV?
Actually, the concept came from traffic stop that I conducted. The thing about me was when I became a trooper, I never thought I would become a police officer. When I got out of the military, I was working at a hotel security Just I got that right away, and I just got recruited by a trooper who was working there off duty and recruited me, and I was very fortunate to, when I passed the academy, to be around a lot of good officers. Well, troopers are very proactive law enforcement. You know, we go out there and we don't. A lot of us don't respond to stuff. We look for stuff, you know. And anyways,
that's right.
I was very fortunate. To become a drug interdictor, and or just a criminal interdictor in general. So I would stop a lot of cars, and I would get narcotics. And the number 35 pounds was 35 pounds of marijuana that I seized off a traffic stop.
And this is a traffic stop in Texas.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, I always try to connect the dots for everybody. If you're not familiar with Texas, it borders on the various countries like Mexico and so on. So a lot of the smuggling, and this is the big thing that you keep hearing about in the presidential campaign about the immigrants and smuggling and the borders and the wall and yada 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 yada. Part of that smuggling piece is a part of that. So you're, as you just said, as a trooper, you all are proactive, not necessarily reactive. So you're actually going up and down the highway, kind of monitoring what's going on. And if you see something that looks a little bit of suspect, you say, okay, let me check this out. So it was a routine traffic stop. So how did you come across the marijuana?
Well, the way I came across this was, and this is where the Lord comes in. Okay, and I know some people, the way they might perceive this as, you know, the Lord, karma, or whatever.
I'm not one of them.
Exactly. Well,
I'm a firm believer.
Exactly, me too. And that's why I talk about this. But I tell people, you know, I don't care what you believe in, there's a higher being out there.
Absolutely.
There is a plan for each and every one of us. So basically, I was working the road, and I had told my buddy, I said, I want to get another seizure before I leave. I was transferring to another duty station. I was like there, I was hitting it, you know, I was making traffic stops, and every time I stopped, people, oh, okay, nothing here, here's a warning, get out. Boom. Oh, yeah, here's a warning, get out. Ma'am, you know, whatever. And I see this car go by, and it had a little bitty U-Haul trailer. And it was a car hauling a trailer, a little U-Haul trailer. I said, that don't look right. Usually you see a truck or a van. So I said, let me go look at this. So I catch up to it, and caught my eye. As I catch up to it, remember, I'm passing cars up to catch up to this one car. I catch up to this car, and as I'm behind it, I'm looking at the car. I'm like, looks good. And because it's nighttime, I can't see inside the vehicle. It looks good, you know. And I hear this voice, and it says, Dave, look at the truck next to you. And I'm a one-man unit. You know, I'm the only one officer in my patrol car. And I look to my right, and I see a truck with a work rack, out-of-state tags, and no tools. Usually, when you wear a work rack, you have extension cords, ladders,
right,
stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, this don't look right. So make a traffic stop, and it's this man, and he takes off on foot in the woods. So he takes off, and I lose him. I come back, and I end up getting 35 pounds of marijuana. So as I do this, it's like, you know, my buddy pulls up, and it's funny how the good Lord puts people in your life.
That's right.
You know, it's amazing how God's plan really is. I mean, you know, like with me, for me to tell the story, I have to go from the beginning, basically, if you don't mind.
Please. I told you the hour go quickly. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Well, I come from humble beginnings, and I was actually born into a broken home, if you will. My father took off, you know, at a young age, and it was at the age of 4 that I realized that I didn't have a father with me. And it was at the age of 4 that my mother and I, it was me, my mother, and my brother, were eating Christmas dinner at a church because we had nowhere else to go. So as we were, you know, I grew up bouncing from home to home, and you know, that's what my life was. And I told myself, I don't want to live like that. So when I became older, I realized San Antonio was just a dead end for me. You know, I grew up from I grew up with humble beginnings. So as I was there, I was like, you know what? I need to take control of my own life. And the funny thing was, God was talking to me. I mean, we always went to church.
Right.
Only when my mother would take us to church, only when she needed something, never to have a relationship with God. Just, hey, God, we need something. Let's go pray. So it wasn't until I went with a friend of mine, and my friend was like, hey, man, we're going to go to church. And I was like, oh, wow, you know, here's a family that talks about the Bible at the dinner table. Like, what? It was like a culture shock to me.
Wow.
So when I went to church with him, and the pastor was, we're doing service, the pastor says, if you want God in your life, you want to have a new life, come up to the front of the congregation and accept God into your life.
Right.
So I was like, that's what I want. That's what I want. So I moved, and as I'm walking, the weird thing is I stopped dead in my tracks. Something just stopped me. A force stopped me in church. And the weird thing was not the fact that this hit me, but the fact that people are going around me like I'm invisible. No one's walking with me. No one's telling me, hey, come on, let's go over here. No one's telling me this. So I freak out, and I was like, okay, so maybe it's a fluke thing. I don't know. The next weekend, and my friend's parents never talked about it. Never brought it up. The next week, I spent at my friend's house again, and we go to church, and I said, I'm going to do this. I want to do this. So pastor says, come on up front. So I go up front. As I'm walking midway to the front, bam, I get stopped in my tracks again. Fear, force, I don't know what it was. It was a mixture of everything. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I guess the devil don't want me getting the Lord or something. You know what I mean? It's weird, It's crazy. So anyway, fast forward, I graduated high school, and I said, you know what? I need to get out of here. So I said, I'm going to take control of my life. I joined the military. As I'm in the military, I passed, I ended up getting spinal meningitis. And I'm having spinal meningitis. This is on the book. I had spinal meningitis. And out of 3 of us that had it, 1 died.
Wow.
And I don't have a relationship with God. And I'm angry at God. I really am. I'm angry at God. I'm like, God, why is this happening to me? And my book goes on exactly what you read earlier from Joyce Myers. That passage you read, and that was just that devotion. That's the devotion you're doing, correct? Okay.
Yes.
This runs parallel to it. I'm telling you.
And DV, this is why we were talking a couple of minutes ago about we know there's a higher force, because you wouldn't be, but many would be surprised how often that daily devotional lines up with what the guest is going to say. Yes. It's crazy, but that's the way the Lord works. Yes. So, so as I'm there at the hospital, I'm angry at God because I don't have a chance to become the father I want to be. And I'm in this hospital, and I'm in a 6-man bed. I'm in the Army, 6-man bed, and there's no one around because I'm quarantined. So, I was like, you know what, God? And I'm angry. And then I say, you know what? Forgive me for my sins, and I know I never had a relationship with you, and forgive me. And that was the best sleep I had that night. I did that, because I was just terrified the whole time I was there. So the next day I woke up, the doctor comes and goes, hey, man, your body's taking the antibiotics and all the treatment we're giving you. I think you're going to be okay. And then end up taking the mask off a couple of days later, and I'm good. So I come out, and I go to Korea. I finish my training, and I get my first duty station is Korea. I go in Korea, I'm like, wow, here I am, this poor kid from San Antonio, now in Korea, seeing a different culture, and I see other people have it worse than we do. Korea, they're not, it's like a bunch of villages there. Right. So I'm there with these people, and I take time to learn their language and communicate with these people. So, anyways, the Lord comes into my life again, and it was there when I met a chaplain, and the chaplain was telling me, look, he explained to me about God.
he explained to me how about having God in your life, and he uses baseball as it, as a story. And I was like, wow, that really hit me. So he and after everyone leaves, I walk up to him, and I'm amazed that I'm able to walk up to the front now. Because when I was younger, I couldn't. Now I'm walking up to the front, and I'm talking to him, and he tells me, he says, look, I know you got to leave. He goes, I want to tell you one verse you got to remember. I said, what's that? He goes, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength.
That's right.
I said, son, he goes, son, you remember that, and you say and you believe it? Trust me, there's nothing you can't do. So anyway, so I finished my tour in Korea, and I get orders to go to Texas. I'm trying to run away from Texas. I get orders to I'm like, are you kidding me? You're kidding me? Out of the whole globe? The whole globe? I'm getting orders to go back to Texas. So I go to my sergeant, and my sergeant is very good friends with the guy up in Washington. They call it Branch, and they assign guys. And I said, hey, I don't want to go back to Texas because I have very bad memories there, very bad upbringing there. And my sergeant goes, well, let me call. So he calls, and he goes, there's only two places open. I said, what's that? He goes, Fort Hood or Fort Bragg. I said, I'll go Fort Bragg. He goes, I can't send you. I said, what are you doing to me? It's an airborne unit. It's an airborne unit. You have to volunteer for it. I said, I'm scared of heights. He says, well, I guess you're going to Fort Hood. So I said, you know what? I sat there and I said, you know what? I can do all things through Christ to give me strength.
Exactly.
So I said, I'll go to airborne school. So I go to airborne school in Georgia. Love Georgia. I'm one of those guys that wherever I go, I want to meet the locals.
Right.
So anyway, so I go to Georgia, and our first time there, my first meeting there with everybody, the whole cadre and all the other branches. We have some Navy SEALs, we have some PJs, we have some other guys, some Marine Recon guys. We're all there getting airborne certified. So we're there, and the guy goes, you Army guys, get over here. So we get there, and he goes, if you fail this school, you'll go to two duty stations, Korea, which I just came from, or Fort Hood. So it's do or die for me. So, anyways, so I go to Fort. I graduate. I pass it. I go to Fort Bragg. I love jumping and trained, and I had really good friends there, and I got to meet different people from across the United States. So I finished my tour there. My contract's done, and I get orders to Fort Hood again.
So it's just destined that you're going to go to Fort Hood.
Yes, but I'm the guy. I'm not listening to God. I'm not listening. I'm like, no, I'm the master of my own universe here, So I said, I go, hey, look. I told the guy, I said, look, I don't want to go back to Texas. He goes, okay, well, we have one more training exercise. And he says, before you get out or re-enlist. I said, I will re-enlist if you give me Hawaii. Because I'm the master of my own destiny here.
Right.
So he goes, all right. We go train, and where do we go train at? New Mexico. I'm like, okay, cool. It's not Texas. But our base camp is El Paso. So I'm back in Texas.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, my God. So we're there training, and they have a 4-day weekend. Well, my sergeant goes, hey, you want to get a rental car? You want to go to San Antonio? I said, no. He goes, you never talked about your hometown. I said, I don't want to. I don't need to. He goes, are you all right? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I just don't talk about my hometown. I don't, not run away from it. I just don't want to be there. There has to be something else for me. So I finished my tour there, and I come back, finish out processing my stuff, and I go to Hawaii. I'm in Hawaii. I'm training. I become air assault. I'm repelling out of helicopters now.
Right.
This good training. I'm like, yeah, yes, this is what I love. What happens? I blow my knee out. I blow my knee. I can't do my job no more. I can't do all that physical training I've done. And what happens to me? You're going back to Texas, buddy. So, I'm back in Texas again. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go to Texas, and, everyone's telling me, these family I have, they're not really hard workers. they're low income, and some accept it. They're like, hey, man, you can just get unemployment. Well, that's not the way. I've been working since I was 12 years old.
Right.
And when I was in high school, I was in co-op. So I've been working pretty much my younger years, to now. And I was like, you know what? No. So 1 month there, got home, I get a job at the hotel. I get recruited. Now I'm in DPS. I'm in DPS. I have a girlfriend. She gets pregnant. Now, I don't, we were just dating. I didn't really love her. But, we're dating, and she gets pregnant. I said, okay, well, here's my chance to become the father I always wanted to be.
Right.
So, I'm like, okay, so, I'm doing everything I can for her, and we go to a small town. In the small town, she hates it. So after my year, I transfer for her. I transferred to Gonzales. And Gonzales, there's a bunch of guys are interdictors there. And these guys, they're really good guys. And they start training me. Like, this is what you look for, blah, blah. They told me the rules, and, we don't violate laws, and we don't racial profile, we don't do none of that. This is the right way to do it, and all this stuff like that. Because troopers, we're held at a high standard. So, anyway, so I'm there, and I'm like, okay, so I'm there looking, I can't find anything. My wife, again, is unhappy, and I have my twin boys. So, for her, I said, we're going to Seguin. I said, once we move again, that's it. We're going to buy a house. We're done. So we do. She moves. We move. 1 month later, she leaves and takes my kids with me at the tender age of 4 years old. And remember, it was 4 years old that I realized.
That's right.
When I was a little.
Right.
It was just a vicious cycle. So I'm depressed. I'm down. And so, she starts. So I devote my time to my work, which is the wrong thing to do. I should devote it to God. But as I'm there, and I start learning interdiction. So I make an arrest. And I was like, I see, my first seizure was 20 pounds. I was like, oh my God, I thought I ended the war on drugs. I'm not lying to you. I thought I did. I thought I arrested Pablo Escobar, the Capo Guzman type,
Right.
I never seen a whole suitcase full, I was like, wow, yeah. So anyway, so I was like, wow, I was there. And then I became successful. But I still had to be the father that the good Lord had blessed me to be.
Right.
So I pick up my kids. I'm spending time with them, and I barely have gas to go pick up my kids. I mean, the good Lord is, I don't know how he's doing it with his, well, I know how, his power, but I'm driving with a quarter tank of gas, and I'm coming back in fumes. I mean, I'm
right.
coasting into my apartment. But I talk to God, and and I'm like, God, there has to be a way. What is your plan for me? So as I'm there, I become, my ex-wife. I go pick up my kids, and the car seats smell like burnt marijuana. Now, at this point, I have seized over 1,500 pounds of marijuana on the road, okay, from different traffic stops.
Right.
I know what that stuff smells like. I confront my ex-wife, and she says, it's cigarettes. I said, it's not cigarettes. So she tells me, if you call CPS, Child Protective Services, you will not see your kids because I only get 1 weekend off, and it doesn't necessarily fall on my time to get
right.
kids. So, she's whatever. And I go to my sergeant, because I know what I can do, but I know what I can't do because, you violate the law or policy. If you're not violating the law, you're going to violate policy. So I was like, no. So I go to my sergeant, and he sits back on his desk, and he says, David, it's your word against hers. Okay. So a couple of months go by. I go to the ranger. I said, hey, we have a ranger in our office. I said, hey, let me pick your brain about this. Your word against hers, Dave. I was like, Trooper Nelson, your word against hers. I'm like, all right. So as I go there, I'm not allowed to pick up my kids at the door no more. Every time I go to pick them up, they're always on the curb with their car seats.
Right.
So I have a can of Lysol. I don't want my kids being around that. So I'm praying to God, I'm like, God, what is going on here? So anyways, I go pick up my kids and I see this guy's name on the registry for school to sign him out. I write down his information, and I was almost going to run it, which is against the law. You can't do that. And the good Lord tells me, no, don't do it. So as I'm there, I'm working, I'm getting more seizures, and that's when the 35 pounds comes in. I get the 35 pounds. The guy leaves. My buddy, Trooper House, pulls up, and he tells me, hey, what are you going to do with this? I said, I'm just going to take my trophy shot because I have a whole wall of dope pictures.
Right.
And I said, and I'm going to just, that's it. The guy got away. My buddy goes, no, you need to do what we always do. We need to get as much intel. So we get a credit card. Okay. Found a credit card. Oh, wasn't that guy's name? Okay. Registration, blah, blah. Anyways, the next day, 2 guys come pick up the truck. And so they call me and say, hey, man, 2 guys are here to pick up the truck. I said, really? So they go over there, ID those guys, and they put a paper for me. Well, a month goes by, and a federal agency calls me. They call me from another state. Okay? The good Lord working mysteriously.
Oh, boy.
So this another agency calls me, federal agency calls me and says, hey, we're looking at this, blah, blah. Do you have any information? I said, yeah, I got a bunch of it. I can't do nothing with it because the guy took off on me. So I give it to them. 10 minutes later, they call me back, says, man, you blew our case wide open. Credit card, the guy, the ringleader, other 2 guys are in with the guy, and the guy ran from you as a mule, the guy that drives. Cool. Congratulations. So I'm there. I transfer, and I go to my new duty station. I get another seizure, which is a rolling meth lab. And I, doing what I do. And all of a sudden, the guy calls me. I'm talking to the agent, and long story short, he says to me, he goes, hey, I'm at the house. I'm drinking my Jack and Coke. And I get a phone call. Hey, it's here in San Antonio. They said, hey, and I live outside of San Antonio. I was stationed in Seguin at the time.
Right.
They said, hey, you need SAPD has your kids. The local police have your kids. You need to come pick them up. And I'm like, what's going on? Well, we don't know. They're just telling you need to come pick them up. So I can't drive because I've been drinking. I mean, most people would, but I don't violate the law. I don't.
Right. It makes sense to me.
And I'm crying, and I go get a neighbor to drive me. She drives me, and I get there, and the door's kicked in. I'm like, what? And I'm like, and these cops are there, and I'm like, how you doing? I'm Trooper Nelson. They're like, oh. They said, okay. And they said, hey, we got your kids. I'm like, yeah, my kids. I'm like, they're okay. I take them with me. I see my ex-wife in handcuffs, and she won't look at me. And I say, I wouldn't look at me neither if I was you. I walk out,
Right.
So anyways, I'm there, and I've been talking to this agent, corresponding back and forth for like a whole month, and every time I call, he picks up. So anyways, I call my sergeant, and I say, hey, I don't know what's going on. I got, my kids. I need to get custody of them. I need time off. He goes, okay, get as much time as you want. So the next day, I can't sleep. My kids are on my arms. I'm crying. Make sure they're okay. I'm making a doctor's appointment, make sure they're all right. And the following morning, I go, let's go see Grandma then. We go to my mom's house. She's there with the kids. I get rest. As I'm driving back, the phone rings. It's the agent, the federal agent. And he says, hey, man, how you doing? He goes, hey, sorry, I didn't call you the other day. We've been talking a lot. He says, you remember those guys you ID'd? Yes, well, we busted them. I was like, congrats. He goes, yeah, and the ringleader guy, he gave up his source, the guy who he bought the 35 pounds of marijuana from. I go, oh, he goes, yeah, it was a big mess. We hit the house. There was kids involved. It was a big mess. What? He says, there was a big mess. There was kids involved. I said, what was this? He goes, last night. I said, wait a minute. Last night? He goes, yeah. I said, okay. Was there a little boy? 2 little boys? He goes, yes. How do you know that? And I said, was a girl named Karen? He goes, yes. How the hell do you know that? I said, that's my ex-wife.
Wow.
Look at my kids.
Wow.
And he's like, what? And the phone goes dead silent. I thought he hung up on me. And he says, and next thing you know, he starts laughing. I'm not laughing. I want to know what the hell's going on.
Exactly.
So and then he tells me everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, my traffic stop had gone full circle to me.
Right. And for those of you listening, if you've been following the story, that's exactly, it has come full circle, because I've been sitting here listening the entire time. And as soon as you said there were kids involved, I immediately, as you heard me say earlier about connecting the dots connected for me at that point.
So I'm there and I'm like, what the hell? So the guy, I start talking to the guy and he says, yeah, he goes, man, and that guy has a warrant. Your ex-wife's boyfriend has a warrant. Now, the significance of that warrant is this. If I were to run him and violate my policy and violate my law, I would have been fired, because you can't do that, number one.
Right.
Number two, if an alert comes up, they're going to say, all right, you need to place him under arrest. Oh, I'm sorry, he's not in front of me. Sorry,
Right.
But see, that's when the good Lord had told me, don't do it.
That's right, because you would have actually killed that case. By doing that illegally, you'd have killed the case.
Yes, but I never did. I followed the straight line. And
right.
In this business, you have to be fair with everybody, and that just the law doesn't just apply to people; it applies to you too.
Right.
And we gotta walk that thin line for us. We walk on a thinner line than most people do because of what we do. And so, anyways, they could see my kids. And I was in a relationship at the time. That's when I got remarried, divorced, and it was too much for her. And I was just there, and I was like, okay, and poured everything out. And the funny thing is, I never really read too many books. But when I wrote this book, right. Everybody's been like, wow, and the funny thing about it is this: it was actually a thicker book. But when I talked to my publisher, and the publisher, here's a kicker too, is this. So my publisher, Halo, the good Lord, right?
Right.
Was actually the 5th publisher I called to get my book published.
Okay.
And the 4 publishers, they were talking, well, they were like, well, we don't have time, and they weren't answering, or they'll call me back. Never did. And then the 5th one was Halo, and then they liked my story, and it's ironic how Halo, talking about the good Lord, and then you have my story talking about the good Lord, and now I'm on your show when you talk about Joyce Meyer and the people that come into your life. And,
right.
It's funny how things just happen.
Yes.
But that's pretty much my story right there. And the book is not very big. It's a good read, and I thinned it out because let's just get to the point. I mean, let's get to the truth here. Is a lot of people don't like reading now.
Yeah, that's why this show is in existence. You're right. We try to encourage people to read more and whet their appetite so that they'll get the books and they get a chance to hear the author. But yeah, truth be told, it is a lot of competition, and I'm in education, so we're constantly challenging the kids and the adults to read more. If you've just joined us,
pretty much it.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley. My guest this morning is D.V. Nelson. And let me read you the synopsis of the book, 35 Pounds. This is a true story of interstate drug smuggling, a Texas Highway Patrolman and a family brought back together through faith in God. Each and every one of us have been through our trials and tribulations, but it's how you handle them that determines what your future holds for you. I was living day to day, but I would have never thought that the chain of events that unfolded on that particular night would be my testimony of a higher being working through me. The title of the book is 35 Pounds. The author is D.V. Nelson. I'm going to share some more information with you, and we will continue.
My name is Diamonds. I am a radio DJ in North Jersey. I broadcast on the frequency of 88.7 FM. I will be on the air every Saturday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. when the sun is setting in the sky. If you are out there, if anyone is out there, I can provide music, I can provide entertainment. If there's anybody out there, anybody, please.
Club Melting Pot. Every Saturday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Only on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
The Reading Circle on WP 88.7 FM.
All right, you are listening to The Reading Circle here on Brave New Radio. And my guest this morning calling all the way from the Lone Star State, the state where everything is big. Because the state itself is big. David, I tell people all the time, in my travels in Texas, you could be on the highway, like in Houston, and you will see a Dallas sign, and it looks like Dallas is like 5 minutes away, and it's like 4 hours away. It's the same thing like with San Antonio. You can see a San Antonio sign in the Dallas area, and it's 8 hours away. That's all in the same state. It's in the same state. It is a huge state. And like I said, in terms of San Antonio, I've been to the city, been to the sites there. So I do know of which the city that David speaks. But I don't know. I sat here and I listened to that story, and it was absolutely amazing. And I see what you're saying with people would get a little, see what the word I'm looking for in terms of like probably in disbelief, and especially when you're saying that's nothing but God. But for those of us who are believers, we know, yeah, because there are times in my life when I, without a shadow of a doubt, know it was the hand or the voice of God that did that. That man, like I listened to that story that you just told, and this is another one of those cases where I don't care how superhuman you are, a human being could not have put that together like that. No. And I've had experiences in my life that same way. And so for those of us who believe, it makes sense to us. But for those who kind of like poo-poo or don't believe or just think it's a bunch of hooey, they'll probably still think it's a bunch of hooey. But you could not script or orchestrate that type of a story unless there was a higher power behind it. I mean, with all the people on the planet, it all wound up connecting back to your personal family. You, out of all the troopers, out of all the officers that could have stopped this person, it was you. And then of all the, you'd already suspected something based on the child seat, and you went through the whole custody thing. I was a part of that. And then as it turns out, it did wind up coming back to your house. So mere mortal could not have put that together.
No, sir. Not at all.
Not at all. I mean, that's got to be the intrigue of the story. Anybody reading 35 Pounds, because it's not just about a drug bust. It's how this whole, and the other part of it is you have a negative situation that once again turned into a positive story. In other words, your story, your testimony could actually wind up helping somebody else. Matter of fact, it will help somebody else. And I know my pastor always says, in many cases, God will do the ridiculous to get the miraculous. So those of us listening to this story might think, that's ridiculous. But when you look at the outcome, it was miraculous.
Yes. Yes, it was.
I mean, even those of us, again, Bible scholars, those of you who read the Bible, there are stories in the Bible that seem contradictory that way. It starts out one way and ends up something totally different of what you would not expect. But that's like in that verse that I read in Joyce's book, our ways are not God's ways. Our time is not God's time. It just isn't. And so for those of us here on earth that honestly believe that we can do those things, it just doesn't work that way. Now, let me ask you this, because this is, again, it's kind of like in this same vein that I'm talking about. There's certain professions that people do not connect spirituality or religion or God or faith with. And being a trooper or a police officer is one, a doctor is one. People generally don't put those things that they don't put, and yet there are Christian doctors, there are Christian police officers, or whatever faith they may have. So how does that, I'm listening to your story, so I know how it squared up with you, because every time you thought about you wanted to do something that could have been illegal, something told you not to do it. But how does that square up in terms of, I'm a trooper, but I'm also a Christian?
Well, troopers, we're held to a higher standard because we're not your local PD, police departments, and with us, it's like I said, I was very fortunate to, and it wasn't so much like that. It's the people that are in my life. I had a guy who trained me, who had 30 years on, and when he trained me, he told me, look, we treat everyone the same, and the day you don't is the day you're no better than the people you're arresting, and that type of training I received, and my faith helped me stay on that straight and narrow. And it's like when you remember the cartoon where you get the little angel and the little devil.
Exactly.
We all come across that, and I could have done that. I could have said, hey, do me a favor, run this guy for me. I could have done that, but I would never ask anyone to do something that I wouldn't do myself.
Well, even in the part that you're in, because it's real tempting and real easy, because once you seize those drugs, pretty much nobody know you seize them but you. So there's nothing stopping you from either selling them yourself, or if you seize, say for example, the money, not necessarily the drug, but let's say you seize the money that was taken from the sale. There's nothing forcing you per se to turn that into headquarters. You could take that home and put it under your mattress and nobody would know the difference.
No, but that's when our integrity comes in.
Absolutely.
We have integrity.
Absolutely.
Integrity is the biggest thing we have. And once you lose that, you are no good to us.
Absolutely. And for those of you, and I just had this conversation yesterday. Integrity is doing what you're supposed to do when no one is looking.
All the time. That's right.
So it's one thing to do what you're supposed to do when you know somebody's looking. It's another thing when you know nobody's looking and you still do what you're supposed to do. That's what integrity is all about. All right. So, because I even see in your bio, it says D.V. Nelson is a Christian father, peace officer. All right. That's why I say in the bio when I read that, I didn't say anything about him being a trooper. That's why I clarified it for you whenever he said I was working a case. But in the bio, it says peace officer, P-E-A-C-E, officer. And in 2016, as I said earlier, a lot of people don't connect peace and officer. They don't connect peace and law enforcement person. They don't. But the truth of the matter is there are more peace officers than there are those who are committing, like you just said. Even some of these crazy things that we hear in the press is because of the lack of integrity. And like I said earlier, you have folks in every profession who are good and bad, who are messing up the profession and who are making the profession great. So he says a peace officer. Now, I tell you, for me, because that one of the reasons, I went in the Air Force because I love airflow. I love the whole aviation. I love the whole, and I had the opportunity to work around the jets because I was a jet engine mechanic, and I absolutely loved it. Just loved it. But the second piece of it, I always loved the uniforms. And like whenever we were in training, because as you know, the drill sergeant, they had that big hat. They had the boots and the hat.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and you guys as troopers pretty much had them same hats. So when I see you all get out the car and put that hat on, I say, "Oh, it's on now."
That's hilarious. Yeah.
But it's like you're right. It's like you see them in cars, and when they get out that car and they put that hat on, we mean business. And again, it's like you're really right in terms of that standard. When it's done right, it really, because when you get pulled over, for the most part, you're in the wrong, or at best, you need to be humble and what can I do for you, officer, or so forth and so on, rather than get an attitude. Because even with that, what is it? Because this is where for me, the faith and all that stuff would really kick in for me. When you get out that car to make a stop, you don't know what you're heading into. Talk about that verse, yea, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death. You don't know what you're walking into when you step out of your car and you now come up on the car you pulled over.
It's funny, because in the book I mentioned that, and of course I skipped a lot because, when you have so much to talk, but and there in the book, I talk about that I got out of the car, I was working this dark road, and I came across this individual, big guy. He was huge, and he was going back to prison. And here I am looking at him, and the good Lord was just, again, on my side, and we looked at each other, and I knew that the line was drawn in the sand, and
right.
I was professional with him, and then when I arrested him, it's business. It's never personal.
Right.
And I arrested him, and I said, hey, I want to get a unit to take your daughter home, and actually a unit to get your daughter and get your vehicle towed. He goes, okay. And he's a big guy, and I said, do you want to kiss your daughter goodbye because you're going back to prison? And he looked at me, and he got teary-eyed.
Right.
And I said, well, this is business, buddy. Because we were going to fight on that road, and I mean, I probably would have lost that thing because that was huge. I mean, I ain't lying. The book I talked about it. The handcuff clicked twice. That's how big his wrists were.
Right.
That's not to mention his arms. So, anyways, I get his daughter, and he kisses his daughter, and he gets teary, and he's like, hey, thank you, sir. And as we're driving,
right,
we're driving because we stared at each other out there. We're out there on that dark road. We stared at each other, and I looked at him, and I said, I know what you're thinking, and you're going to lose.
Right.
And that's all I said, just like that. I just said, I know what you're thinking, you're going to lose. And when he looked away, I said, I got you, because he didn't make a move. That's when I handcuffed him. And after I put that second handcuff, I was like, oh, good Lord. Whew, Lord. So as we're driving, and I never put my hand on my gun unless I'm going to use it. But this night, I never put my hand on the gun. I just kind of belayed myself with my left foot forward and, ready to throw a punch or something. My hands were down, and that's what I told him that. So as we're driving, I feel his eyes burn in the side of my head. And I'm like, oh, Lord, this guy, oh, Lord, this guy's he's got to keep going. And he goes, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure. And he says, would you have shot me? And I said, I pulled over and I said, yep. And he goes, yeah, I know. Because he was looking down at me. This guy was like 6'3", 6'4", and he's looking down at me, and he was just like, I know. So we both laugh, and we get back in the road, and we take off. So as we go to the jail, I in the jail, you can't take no weapons.
Right.
I leave my, I put my weapons in there, and I'm walking. It's just literally fist to cuff now, me and this guy. So I take him in there, and I say, you're not going to do nothing stupid? He goes, no. And as I take the handcuff off, I take the one handcuff, and I take the second one off, he turns around real fast. And I stand back like, boy, I'm going to hit you, and because I got mad. And he goes, hey, I just want to thank you, man. And he smiles, and he goes, I've never had an officer treat me the way you did.
See?
And I said, I'm not an officer.
See?
I'm a state trooper.
See?
He goes, and he just laughs. And we're good, but that just gives an example of what the way I am with everyone.
But
and this guy was huge.
But see, the thing is, DV, a lot of people mistake, and that's where that old saying comes from: "Don't mistake kindness for weakness." A lot of people mistake kindness, and truth be told, it takes more courage to be kind than it does to be nasty. It's easy to be nasty with somebody. It's easy to be rough and tough and bully and all that. It's easy to do that. It takes more courage to be kind to somebody, especially somebody you may or may not like, or when you're doing a job like yours where, like you said, this isn't personal, but you broke the law. This is my job. Right.
Yes, sir.
But a lot of times people will mistake the kindness for weakness. They will. But again, it's almost like I have a friend of mine that just cracked me up when we were talking about the job of firefighter. He said, man, that's a hell of a job that you're running into a house everybody else is trying to run out of. But it's kind of like that same thing with law enforcement. You all knowingly are going after people who have broken the law, and you really don't know how they're going to respond or they're going to react. I keep sharing with you that I work in education. I'm the principal of a school, and every now and again, and not so much lately as in the past, kid get out of hand, we've had to call the police. And the police come in and we'll talk to the kid, whatever. And they'll tell me, and this is the crazy part about it, man, we don't know how you do what you do. And my pushback to them was, I don't know how you do what you do, because if I had a gun.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
But it really
That's
is.
funny. That's funny.
But to have a police officer tell me as a principal, I couldn't do it. I don't know how you do it. You got to be kidding me. You're a police officer?
I'm doing the same thing with you. I can't, it's amazing because like with us, I do it the public, you do it the public.
Right.
And I deal with adults that act like children. You deal with children who think they're adults.
Right.
you know what I mean?
That's exactly
it's
right.
funny to me,
But it's exactly right. But see, this is where, going back to purpose and everything that you were talking about, I truly believe in that calling piece. There are certain jobs I know I could not do. And one of them, I know working in a hospital would not do it for me. I know working in a nursing home. That's another set of people that, like, whenever I do my church visitations and so forth and so on, when I go through there, I'm like, oh my God, thank you for the people that can do this. Because for me, I hate to see people suffer. So for me to have to go in and see people suffering and hurting and in pain and linked up to machines and nose and just, that just does something to me. So for people that can work around that every day and it doesn't faze them, like, thank God for you. And that's why I believe, like you were saying, I think those of us who do what we do well in our professions, that we're actually called to do it.
Yes, sir. And just like you're called to do what you do. I'm called to do what I do. And the funny thing about my book here is the 35 pounds. I tell people that's my biggest seizure.
Right.
Not number-wise. The most I've ever seized was a ton in one day.
Wow.
Me and my buddy. He sees. Yes, my buddy sees 1,000 pounds, and it's in the book. He sees 1,000 pounds, and he calls to brag about it. He goes, hey, man, I got 1,000 pounds. He says, traffic looks good. Just come out early. So I did. 3 hours later, I get 1,000 pounds.
Wow.
And we were able to link the both vehicles, the both loads together. But what I'm saying is, I tell people, I see 1,000 pounds. I see heroin, kilo, cocaine. I've arrested all types of people, male and female, too.
Right.
But my biggest seizure is 35 pounds because I end up getting my children from it.
Right.
The power of God. I said, and then people look at me and they're like, wow, that's pretty crazy. So, but it's funny because, like, you talk about that's what we're destined to do.
Right.
And I, in my book, I also talk about how when in Hawaii, I became a youth group counselor.
Okay.
And when I was telling the kids, I said, kids, y'all are destined for greater.
Right.
And one kid asked me, he goes, what about you? Are you destined for greater? And I said, I never really thought about that. And when I went home that night, I said, you know what? I am destined for greater.
Right.
I do that to the kids, but it's also for me. And ever since then, I mean, I just been successful. And right now, I have producers, they asked for my book already.
Uh-huh.
One director did. I don't know where it's going with that, but whatever.
Right.
But the point I'm getting at is just we're all destined for greater. We all have a plan, and we're all destined for greater if you just follow the path.
Absolutely. If you've just joined us, and we've actually gone over the hour, and that's okay because I have the flexibility to do that. I'm grateful and thankful for that. But let me do what I need to do for the 7 o'clock. I got to share the weather with you again, and then we'll talk a little bit further, and I'll let DV take over the microphone to do all the promotions, and then we'll be on our way. So don't you dare move. This has been a fascinating interview.
WPSC, Wayne, New Jersey. On the radio, 88.7 FM. Online, gobrave.org. A tune-in radio station. Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey. This is the innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The fearless. They have awesome variety. The kick-ass. I love Brave New Radio. The sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
Straight from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center, here's your local forecast.
All right, it is 46.6 degrees. Today, Rain likely, and like I said, it was raining when I came into the studio this morning, but we're moving up to a high of 48. Cloudy skies this evening will become partly cloudy after midnight. Then tomorrow, Sunday, mostly sunny skies, becoming windy during the afternoon, high of 62, low of 48. Partly cloudy in the evening, 40% chance of rain tomorrow night. And then on Monday, some clouds in the morning will give way to mainly sunny skies in the afternoon, 59 as a high, 39 as a low. Tuesday, sunshine and clouds mixed, high of 52, low of 34, mostly clear on Tuesday night. And then on Wednesday, rounding out our forecast, sunshine and some clouds, high of 51, low of 31. That is the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center.
Man, do I love card night. You ready, boys? You got a king?
Go, fish dad.
Oh, come on. This is WWE superstar Titus O'Neil. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today. Learn more at 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hey everyone, let's all stop what we're doing and take a moment. You see? Every moment can be kind of special. But they can be loud moments, goofy moments, dorky moments, it doesn't matter. Because every time dads like us take a moment like that to spend with our kids, well, it's pretty momentous. So let's take a moment to make a moment. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
You wanted to be a teacher when you were little, but as you grew up, things changed. Teaching just didn't seem like the best option anymore, so you decided to become something else. But what would your 12-year-old self say? Interesting and innovative things are happening in teaching today, so it's time to put it back on your list. Don't try to convince yourself otherwise. You had it right the first time.
Find out how you can make more at teach.org. Make more. Teach. Brought to you by Teach and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to an extended version of the Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. My guest this morning is D.V. Nelson, and as I said prior to sharing that information with you, this interview has been fascinating to say the least, but is also one more example of the power of God. And for those of you in the listening audience, whether you're a believer or not a believer, there is something beyond just us here on the earth. And when you hear a story like this, that's yet another affirmation and confirmation of that. As I said, we mere mortals could not have put a story like that together. Matter of fact, some would think that was fiction. Like, DV, there's no way in the world that could have happened. Yet, DV lived it. So he wrote this down. It is a true story. The title is 35 Pounds. As we were talking earlier about God doing the ridiculous to get the miraculous, this is one of those cases where something that would appear ridiculous on the surface actually turned into a miracle, because DV wound up with his children as a result of it, and has had many other experiences and adventures since then. As you said, we didn't tell you the entire book. We just kind of whet your appetite because we do want you to go out and purchase the book. And DV, this point, you can promote, like if you're doing any book signings, where the book is can be found. I see on the website, it's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You can say anything with the exception of the dollar amount. That's the only thing you can't say, but anything short of that, the mic is yours.
Yes, sir. No, that's it. If you're interested in reading a really good story, a true story, check out my book. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. What's the other one? Nook, I believe. Kindle. And please, and if you can, I would also like to have hear your feedback. That's pretty much it for me. I mean, I really appreciate your time, sir, and public. And again, it's a true story. People, again, I always get asked, no way. I can't believe it happened. Some people say it was luck, karma, but I choose divine intervention.
No, it's not. I mean, those are nice words and nice descriptions, but that's not what it was. And that's what I said.
Exactly.
I've had experiences in my own life. Matter of fact, and I'm not going to get into the whole story, but I left corporate to go into education. And the transition from that was another one of these. If I were to write that as a story, people would be like, man, there's no way in the world that could have happened like that. But it was just like a puzzle coming together. All the pieces of the puzzle fit. Every last piece, the edge, the center, every last piece of the puzzle was there. And the thing is, me and DV were not the ones putting the puzzle together. That's what we're trying to get to you.
Exactly.
It wasn't us putting this puzzle together. It had to be something beyond us that put that puzzle together. So when I left corporate and went into education, the timing of everything, because that's what this story really is about, is timing.
Yes, sir.
And it goes back to what I started the show off with, was God's time is not our time. So
exactly,
it's not karma, it's not luck. Those are nice, cute words, but it's beyond that.
That's what I tell people, because people say, no, that's not God, that's karma. I say, I don't care, whatever you call it. I say it's a higher being. There's God. That's right. That's why I wrote it that way.
That's right.
The other thing too is, I have had people read my book. Now, if you're a single father, if you're coming from poverty, broken homes, I overcame that.
Right.
And so can you.
Right.
So can you. And doing the right thing, having that integrity in your life, and instilling that in your children, and for making this world a better place. And I did my part in this world, and I'm still doing it.
Right.
The funny thing about it is, I had a guy contact me, and he says, and I was, because I like feedback, and I was embarrassed of my book because I've never written a book before, and I was like, it was like so thick, and then I thought, hey, no, cops ain't going to read no 450-page book. So I cut it down to 200 pages. Took out a lot of stuff, but it flowed really well. And a guy called me, and he goes, hey, your book was very therapeutic to me. And I was like, really? He goes, yes. He says, I grew up the same way. He goes, I grew up with a broken home, humble beginnings. I joined the military like you, but instead I went in the Marine Corps. I became a peace officer, and I retired. And he says, with the exception of, the whole custody thing,
right.
But he goes, I grew up the same way. He goes, our lives are very much parallel, except mine was 10 years prior to yours. And I was just like, well, I was glad I could help you.
Absolutely.
Goes, you really, because he doesn't talk about this to his kids, and why would you? And everyone at work, where he worked with, they didn't grow up the way he did. So you're not the only one, in other words.
Well, it's interesting you would say that, because, and I've had this conversation with other guests on the show, particularly Christian authors. One of the tricks of the enemy, and again, whatever name you want to choose, devil, Lucifer, Satan, negative spirit, whatever you want to call it, karma, whatever. But one of the tricks of that is to make one feel like they're the only one in the world out of this entire big world. They are the only one that's going through it or went through it. And that's a trick.
Yeah, that is true.
Because that's where, like you say, the depression and everything kicks in. Like, this hasn't happened to anyone else on the planet. When truth be told, it has. And by reading or watching a movie or something, or somebody sharing their experiences with you, like you just said, if DV can overcome that, so can I. Or the flip side of it is, well, I want what DV has. And if he's telling me that's a relationship with God, then you know what? I'm going to try to get that relationship too.
Try it. Just give it an honest shot and see what happens. It's amazing. And, and the funny thing, like I tell my children, it's, there's a big plan for you. And it's funny because my grandfather, he would say, you want to make God laugh? Tell him what your plan in life is.
I know that's right.
And it's funny because I never really listened to my old grandfather, and I was kind of like, yeah, who's this guy, And, he's just old. And then come to find out, I was running from Texas, and everything was bringing me back. No matter what I did, it was bringing me back.
Right.
Training, orders, to go to new duty stations, Fort Hood. I'm like, I don't want to do that, but I wasn't listening. Sometimes you just need to, if you're going through hard times, stop, take a step back, and look at the big picture of what's going on. What you need to do. Sometimes you just need to let go, like that song, Jesus Take the Wheel. So,
exactly.
And just go with it, and it just, it's funny to me. But, yes, and, whoever it is, whoever gets the book, I would just love your feedback on it and how it impacted you, if it did. Because, again, it's a true story, a true testimony of the power.
All right.
And if it can happen to me, it can happen to you.
There you go. And you said something a couple of minutes ago when you were talking that, again, it's confirmation and affirmation. You said the words, do the right thing. That's what I have on my signboard in front of my school this week. And I just put it up 2 days ago because what I had up there last week was do your homework. And the Spirit came to me and said, put up on the board, do the right thing. So I went out, took the letters with me, opened up the signboard, and that's what's on my board in front of the school right now. It just says, do the right thing.
Awesome.
And then I heard you just say that. There it is.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
There it is. So
yes, sir.
The book is 35 pounds, listening audience. I encourage you to get it. I will be downloading it because you said it's in Kindle version, right?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
It's electronic. All right, I'll find out one way or the other. If it's not electronic, I'll order a hard copy of it or a soft copy, whatever it is. But I want to read the book myself. Even though I know the story, I still want to read it. And the book is 35 pounds. The author is D.V. Nelson. So, D.V., have a wonderfully blessed day and enjoy. I guess because you heard our weather here in New Jersey. Is it warmer there in Texas?
Well, right now, we're at 49 degrees right now.
Oh, you're about with us then.
It's about 78. No, but it's going to get about 78, 79 degrees.
Oh, so you're going on up there. Well, I love the one. Now, see, that I could do. I could live in a warm weather all year round area. That I could do. I mean, we get all 4 seasons up here in New Jersey, but I'd be all right with just the warm ones.
Well, this is our winter right here, just for the record.
See?
Right? It only gets cold like twice a month. That's it.
See, that I could deal with that. I could live with that. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me this morning. And like I said, I thought I got up early, but you got up even earlier. So I wish you nothing but God's blessings and the best with 35 pounds. And I do record the show, and I always make the disclaimer, but I think everything is working right this morning because I record the show and then I have to go home and edit it and then kick it back out to you on a YouTube link or either an MP3 link. And then you can do whatever you want with it once you receive it.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the opportunity, and love your show.
Same here. Love the book. Just thinking about the story. Wow. I'll be sharing that story with some folks. All right.
Well, thank you.
Have a wonderfully blessed day again. Take care.